We all are human. We're going to go through our things. We're going to feel our feelings if we're allowed to, because that's a whole nother podcast. But by and large, most men aren't able to feel their feelings. So instead of saying, you know what, this hurt me to my core, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm sad, we go spend money, or we go stunting, or we go smash a whole bunch of chicks, or we express ourselves in a way that is to protect our hearts by being angry or being aggressive. And I believe that ultimately who loses in that transaction is us, because we get further away from peace. We get further away from identifying what the real issue is. That's why you need a healthy balance of counseling as well as prayer, as well as a circle of people who love you and accept you for where you are in life. But then also people in that circle who won't allow you to sit still and encourage you to do better and move forward. If you smashing chicks every week, somebody got to say, hey, nigga, you need to stop. Top of it, man. It's your boy AntMoe coming live and direct from the studio of the Mind of a Man podcast. And welcome to another episode of the Mind of a Man. So I'm your hostess, man, AntMoe. And, the Mind of a Man podcast is a podcast for people who want to have the end result be a community of men who are whole, healthy, and healed. Accountability, transparency, all of those things. I don't want to always be the super let me give you this perfect rundown. But, it is a podcast where we give you a holistic peek inside of the mind of a kingdom man. Now I'll give you my rundown. It is a 3-tiered approach, mind, body, and soul. We want to deal with all three of those things. And the end result is we want a community of men who are whole, healthy, and healed, period. Listen, man, if you're looking for some cookie cutter, something super bash women eccentric, this is not the place for you. Something where all we do is uplift men and talk about how we the prize all day. This ain't for you. But if you want, a podcast where we talk about self-improvement, where we deal with our own issues, where we take accountability for ourselves and move forward, this is, in fact, the podcast for you. If you're watching on camera, I'm drinking Ripple and Tanqueray. That is not what I'm really drinking. Doesn't matter what I'm drinking. I'm not drunk or anything like that. This is definitely some Coke and some, I don't know what that is. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But I just want to let y'all know, if y'all see me drinking out this cup, it's not water. But anyway, let's get into it, man. So I'm a person who listens to a lot of podcasts. I'm a person who takes in a lot of YouTube and things of that nature. So I get a lot of my thought process from the stuff I experience, the people I'm around, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I was listening to Anthony O'Neill, and he had a preacher out of Texas, and then this guy named Tony Gaskins, if I'm not mistaken. And I watched them back to back, and they were talking about men being kings and dealing with certain aspects of relationships, and how we are a lot of the problem in why women are as broken as they are, right? Obviously, a lot of us men can think back to being younger men and being warlocks, as Dr. Ronnie Wayne likes to bring up, having the ability to be able to speak life into somebody, a young lady in this instance, and us choosing to talk them out of their panties, essentially. Or just playing mind games in any capacity. I think a lot of us can say that we're guilty of that. And a lot of women we can't blame for being broken by the time they're 30 and not being able to deal with a man who is actually in some capacity good for them. So that's something to actually take in. So I'm thinking about that, right? And it made me think about me relationally. I've never been a hoe, so to speak. I I've kind of went down that road a little bit, meaning like I may have had like what you would call a one night stand, but it wasn't a one night stand because I knew the female in a capacity. It was just a way that I didn't move, and you know what I'm saying? And this is all while being a believer. All while being a man who people knew he's a Christian, he loves God, he has certain standards. You know, those were some of my weaker moments. Man, I can say this: being a man who grew up in Fort Worth. I grew up in Meadowbrook on the east side, going to college, getting out of college, you know, being divorced. I ain't never had no problem getting no women, right? For whatever the reason. But the thing I can tell you about me is that I always led with passion for what it is that I like to do or would like to do. The fact that I'm a man who loved at the time my one child with everything in my being. All I ever cared about was being a good father. And I always had a sense of direction and sense of self in who I was. Most women would not care about the dollars in your bank account if they know that you are a man who knows where he's going. Most women who care about anything about attaching themselves to a man. The problem is, if you know where you're going but you don't know who you are, you could set up a trail of tears. Because you could have a strong sense of self and be confident and be passionate and all of whatever verbiage you want to throw in there. And you could set yourself up, or you could set a young lady up for failure because you're wanting to attach yourself to people for the wrong reasons. I remember being in high school and hustling. I might have been working at the time, maybe not, but I remember hustling up money for Valentine's Day to go buy the biggest white bear in the school to give to she wasn't even my girlfriend at the time. She was like, we were just talking, but we had been talking for a long time. Like we talked for like a year before we became a thing in high school. And that was which was my first wife. And, you know what a lot of this world would call simping, in a sense. Doing nice things for women these days is simping. Loving a woman with everything in you is simping. Saying nice things about your lady is simping. Like, that's the world we live in. And so I remember it was another guy that was vying for her attention at the time, and he was just like, yeah, okay. And yeah, that's nice. You know what I'm saying? Now, hindsight, I ended up with the girl, whatever. Do with that what you may. But I just remember being that type of guy, like craving the relationships, like wanting to be with somebody, wanting to feel loved and wanting to express that love. But a lot of that was birthed from a broken place, right? Like a lot of that was birthed from not even knowing what it meant to even accept or receive love from a woman. My grandmother wasn't the most affectionate. My mom was in prison. My sister, I protected her, but it wasn't like, hey, I love you. Like, it wasn't nothing like that. And all my relationships up until that point, you're a kid. Like, I was running around having sex when I was 14. We said we loved each other, but, okay. And you just kind of maneuvering through life the best way you know how at that point in my life, right? To becoming an adult and then not even having a good relationship with my child up until she was like 4 to 5 years old. And I remember she just hated being around me because I was always angry. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that I was in a marriage that I didn't want to be in. Now, I think hindsight, my ex-wife will say the same thing. Like I didn't want to be married. I just wanted to do right by God in a sense. That's what my mindset was, is if I get married, I please God. You don't want to bring this baby into the world out of wedlock. You know what you have to do. You got her pregnant, you know what you got to do. That's the stuff that was taught to me. And so a lot of my anger and frustration was birthed from a place of feeling like I had no control over my own life. Almost upset and angry at God for the fact that you're making me do this in a sense, because the messaging that I'm getting from my pastor is one that this is how you get in right standing. You're 19 years old at the time. I'm 19 years old at the time. And so a lot of that relationship I spent hoping that God would do something to make her this person that I wanted her to be, and that it would make me be happy with myself. Hindsight, that's the dumbest thing you could ever do, or think, or believe, or act on. Because something that I've said often in the past to other people is that God doesn't bless a mess. Like, we want God to come say, oh, you're making bad decisions, but I'm going to cover it up with my Holy Spirit and you're going to walk in bliss. Now, does that not mean that we can't find something in us to draw us together? It's possible. I could grow another inch or two. It's possible. But in reality, you should be very careful of the relationships that you forge, who you lay down with, who you have kids with. Stop blaming God for your poor decisions. My ex-wife is a cool person. We've worked together a lot better over the years. The communication has gotten a lot better. All of those things, but I'm not going to act like it hasn't come with its trials. And what we got to understand is that it's not about other people being terrible people. It's about them not being the right people for you. And that's something that I didn't take into account. Is what I heard the man of God say, the man of God, on the podcast with Anthony O'Neill, and I can't remember his name, but he's I'm sure a famous preacher in Texas, older, very well put together, young. He still looks very well for a young age. I mean, for his older age. I think he said he's 58 now or something like that. Looks amazing. But he said he chose his wife because he knew that she was the woman for where he was going. And oftentimes in relationships, we don't choose our spouses based off of purpose, based off of where I'm going. This person fits into those plans. They have a similar outlook on life. They are ambitious in whatever their respective field is. I never want a woman to be as ambitious as me. Never, because I will run myself into the ground. But I do want somebody who is hungry about life, who doesn't want to be satisfied with sitting still where they're at right now. And so, once again, we were married for 8 years. If you want to count actually working on the marriage in some capacity, for about 6 years. And that 7th and 8th year was a bunch of hell on wheels. Not to say that before that it wasn't. I mean, 6 months into the marriage, we were already hell on wheels. But I think we both individually picked times where we were actually putting our best foot forward to try to make something out of it. Right. And so, you once again, be very careful who you attach yourself to, or not even like, once again, because people are bad, but because then you start having kids and then other lives are affected by it. I never thought that there would be a world that I would live in where I wasn't praying with my daughter at night and I wasn't waking her up for school in the morning and taking her to school or picking her up from school or noticing every flaw on her body from, her going to school and getting a scratch on her arm, or, just the normal things of being an attentive dad that have passed me by over the years. Because once again, the only thing I've ever cared about in life was being a good father. Before I had ambitions or dreams or goals of being successful or being on TV or whatever, what I cared about was being a good father. And so I should have never got married in the first place. And I think that's a crossroads that we have to get to as men, because one of the things that the man of God, once again, because I don't know his name, I just refer to him as the man of God, talked about was, he was actually speaking about it in reference to women, but he was talking about women not being happy with themselves or not being comfortable being by themselves. So a certain type of woman who isn't ready to be a wife or who isn't in a position to even be in relationship with somebody or do life with somebody, he talked about having a certain level of characteristics that they would display. And that some of it was like, hey, they don't even accept the good things that they do for themselves because they're chasing the identity of other people, or because they don't know their own identity. They can't be happy with the things that they do in life, or they're never by themselves long enough to be comfortable with being who they are. So before I go any further, it also made me think about this. He broke down that he doesn't think that men are the prize. He thinks that women are undoubtedly the prize, right? And he gave his reasons why, and I agree with him. I think by and large, my idea of whether a woman is a prize or not, if a man is a prize or not, is based off of the trauma that you've experienced in life with somebody. I believe that when you talk about a woman being a crown that adorns a man's head, that is definitely a prize. I believe that a man is something within himself that is to be displayed to the world, but his woman is always going to be a reflection of who he is. And we show off women. We don't show off ourselves. And I believe that most men that want to be the prize or identify themselves as the prize want to show themselves off because there's been an intense lack of respect or love or appreciation for who you are as a man. So you feel like, let me put myself on display because I need others to appreciate me, or I want others to appreciate me the way that she didn't appreciate me. And by and large, mind you, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with this. I don't. I think the issue comes in when you don't know that this is what the issue is. We all are human. We're going to go through our things. We're going to feel our feelings if we're allowed to, because that's a whole nother podcast. But by and large, most men aren't able to feel their feelings. So instead of saying, you know what, this hurt me to my core, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm sad, we go spend money, or we go stunting, or we go smash a whole bunch of chicks, or we express ourselves in a way that is to protect our hearts by being angry or being aggressive. And I believe that ultimately who loses in that transaction is us, because we get further away from peace. We get further away from identifying what the real issue is. That's why you need a healthy balance of counseling as well as prayer, as well as a circle of people who love you and accept you for where you are in life. But then also people in that circle who won't allow you to sit still and encourage you to do better and move forward. If you smashing chicks every week, somebody got to say, hey, nigga, you need to stop. Nigga, you can't drown in a cup of alcohol to make yourself feel better. Not for too long. Get up, man of God. You got stuff to do. You got purpose to go fulfill. So we skip ahead, right? And then I think about by and large, thinking about what a woman needs, what a man's role is in fulfilling what a woman needs, and the realization that most men are chasing after fulfillment in women that aren't good for them, or that aren't ready to be the person that they need to be in this season of life and the one to come. So both times that I've been married, and mind you, I'm a nigga who's almost been married several times. That is what I've done. That would be the indication of a broken man who doesn't know what he's after in life. Like, I can see the overarching thing, but the intricate details I chose to not pay attention to. I should probably have never have gotten married. Why? Because financially I wasn't stable. Emotionally I wasn't stable. Mentally I'm fine. I'm not saying I'm like the greatest, but I'm not one issue away from snapping or anything. But I do believe by and large most black men don't know how far they are away from going left, because we're taught to just put our chin high, stick your chest out, go into the world and look like nothing's wrong. Because if you don't, you'll be a target. If you don't, you will be picked on quickly. You will be snuffed out. You will be labeled as something that you're not. And so, yeah, I thought about that today. That, Usher had a song. He said, "I love love, I'm just bad at it." And I'm like, I think in my life, I've been intrigued with the idea of love because I don't know if I've ever really known what it was. I believe my grandmother loved me, but she was an angry person. I believe she had mental things, whether that was bipolar or manic depressant. I'm almost certain that she may have even been diagnosed with those things, but we're going to have a conversation about it at 7. But as I got older and I started working in the mental health field, I started noticing that the people around me, the closest people, were dealing with the same things that I was then finding people diagnosed as. She took plenty of medication, some she didn't. So, I think I have been in a position that I've been covered by God, shielded by him to not deal with certain dynamics of life. But then I think there's only so much you can be shielded from in a fallen and broken world. So I've dealt directly with not knowing what love is fully, knowing what love was based off of performance, whether that's sexually, whether that's financially, whether that is in a relationship, what you do or don't do, what you accept or don't accept. It's not an unconditional form like being a father to a child or a mother to a child. I believe that the first healthy relationship I ever had with a female in my life was with my oldest daughter, Samaya. And it was me not wanting to end up like one of those dads that a daughter never wants to deal with, that made me sit down and have a conversation with her at 5, where if you know her, she's the most amazing, articulate, just intuitive kid, that at 5 she was able to tell me, "No, I think you're a great dad, but I believe that you have anger issues. And when you do this or when you say that," which I never cussed at my kids, even to this day. I've never cussed at my kids in life. That was one thing I vowed I would never do, because my grandmother called me everything but a child of God, and it scarred me. That's literally like a trigger for me. But just being angry and yelling and, all of those things that kids don't deserve. It's like we treat kids as if they've been around this earth before. They are experiencing everything in real time. The mistakes they make are even in some capacities an extension of your DNA and your shortcomings and the things that, you haven't processed. It's that whole sins of the father are passed down to the children if they're undealt with. And then you're still going to deal with some things because we're just human. I imagine there's things that I may do or say that I got from my parents that I don't even realize. Which brings me to me talking about distractions on a past podcast and making me, I asked a question to myself, and I chopped it up with my partner about it. And I'm like, I wonder, because I've always been a driven person. I've always been ambitious. I've always been passionate. I've always been hungry and thirsty for more and always saw something beyond what was in front of me. All of those things, right, that I could bloviate about. But I run into these walls of execution that I don't do. Or I should be recording, but I won't. Or I record 3 episodes and won't edit them for months or weeks. Or start a program and don't finish it. Pay for my gym membership and don't go. But it's the complete antithesis of who I am as a man, who I've always represented. I got a job at 15. My partner Gorgio, shout out to him and his mom. She worked at Whataburger and she got me on and gave me plenty of hours. In the summertime, I think it was actually illegal, but I was working overnight and I would travel miles in the dark of night in Fort Worth, Texas, and Meadowbrook to get to work every day because I was driven. I wanted to take care of myself to a certain degree. I didn't want to have to ask my granny for no more money for shoes or clothes. That was the kid that I was, with no father, with no mother, with my grandmother and 2 younger siblings. I had a mindset that I wanted to succeed, and I just knew that I needed to just go do it. So, is there something genetically? Is there something in my bloodline? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. But what I won't do is be a man who makes excuses. So even if there is shortcomings in my lineage, if there's some laziness or procrastination or some just human frailties, what I refuse to do is allow that to stop me from accomplishing or achieving or fighting with my very being to be successful in life. It's that where Paul talks about the things I don't want to do, I do all the more. The things I want to do, I don't do. Like, it's that thing in me that I battle with every single day to be successful. I pay for my gym membership. I've been to the gym once thus far. I want to keep it going. I've been recording. This will be the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th podcast I've recorded. 2 of them, I was sleepy out of my mind. I 86'd them. There's no point for me to, I was out of my mind trying to record. I'm not putting that out. And at the end of the day, I pray that the content resonates with people. That is something that people enjoy, that they can learn from. I keep saying this is self-improvement because I'm not presenting a finished product. I am coming before you as a man saying, I am working on me. And there are parts of me that I struggle with to this day, but I'm not going to hide it from people. I'm not going to sit on this couch and act like life is great, because it's not. I should be further along. I should be on the deeper things. I should be on meat, but I'm still drinking milk. Pause for the on meat comment. But it's a Bible reference. And so I'm tempted to stop here, but I could keep going. Man, this is my therapy. This is where I sit down on the couch and I talk to myself. And, I'm interested for therapists out there, for people who have studied psychology like I did. I have a bachelor's in art. Bachelor's of art and psychology from UT Arlington. And I was always intrigued by what people do or don't do and the reasons why they do or don't do things. Like, the study of the mind is an interesting thing because it makes people who grew up in the same household so different, and people who grew up in 2 different households the same, based off of the experiences, based off of the mindset. That's the stuff that I'm into. And so I don't know if I'm going to keep going, but the timer's running out, and Either way, we're gonna take a break. Let's see. We'll throw an ad in here, and see. You know what I'm saying? I'll see what's still going on in the top of the dome. You know what I'm saying? If you guys have any questions, comments, please put them below. And you know what I'm saying? Let me know what you're getting from this thus far. I'm always interested in you guys psychobabble and psychoanalytics that you guys do. So we're gonna take a break and we'll be right back, man. Peace.